Boy, it's unbelievable what them marauders had to go through. Right there in that hot, steaming jungle. The Japanese were the least of the worries. Man, if you stood in one spot just a little bit too long, that jungle would grow right up through you. And them leeches, insects, snakes, boy, I'm telling you, it was a hellhole. Now, we were supplying these guys from the air, kicking out stuff to them. And they say that's what we sent over to do. And if it hadn't been for us, they'd just died right there in that jungle. And on top of all that, General Merrill wasn't in very good health. I think he had a number of heart attacks and finally had to be relieved. Now that march and fight down there at Mission Hall was very costly to both sides. I think the Japanese lost about 600 men killed, and the Chinese lost 972 men. 3,184 more were wounded. The Americans counted 272 dead, 955 wounded, and another 980 were severely ill. The book says in the terms of the size of the enemy force overcome and the Allied casualties suffered in the process, the fight for Mission Hall was roughly comparable to the Marines taking a Tarawa in the Pacific, one of the bloodiest battles of the island campaign. And at Mission Hall, the Chinese and American armies had to do the job without the massive air support and naval gunfire that had been available to the United States Marines. With Mission Hall in Allied hands, the transports immediately began flying the lower less hazardous route to China, bypassing the hump. And the tonnage delivered to Kunming quickly doubled. And as soon as the Lido Road and the pipeline began laid beside it could be brought up to Mission Hall, the supply situation would improve even more. On the day that General Buzimaki, the Japanese general, committed suicide in Mission Hall, General Stilwell received news of his own promotion to full general. 3 days later, he was able to write in his diary, "Mission Hall over at last, thank God." Now this news analyst, Eric Severide, was a war correspondent over there. I think he had to bail out in the jungle over there one time. He said a while back that he had never seen anything like it before or since. Now, after they captured that airfield of Mission Hall, we started flying in there, and we'd evacuate some of them wounded marauders back over into India. And they wanted to patch about half of them up and send them back. But them guys, they wouldn't have no part of that. They done everything that you could imagine to keep them going back to Burma. They harassed the Red Cross girls and the nurses. They tore up the mess halls in the hospitals. And I guess it was a good thing for them. I don't know. I think they disbanded them soon after that. But even the ones that went back, is going down the central part of that Burma over there, a different type of country. Sort of got out of the jungle, and it might have been a little bit better marching down through there. Now they say that there's a bunch of the marauders talking about General Stilwell one time. You know, Stilwell, more people hated him than liked him because he was hard, tough, cold-hearted. Boy, you had to be. All those guys like that, them big leaders that back through history, you know, they were cold-hearted fellows. Even George Washington. But anyhow, one of them said, was out there in the jungle one day, and he said, you know, I was laying there, and I had Vinegar Joe right in my sights. He walked right in my sights. Said all I'd had to do was just squeeze off the trigger, and no one would ever know that one of them Japs didn't do it. Just how stupid can you get? I just laid there and let him walk right on back. Well, feelings run high in different directions in a war, you know. But if you ever run across anybody that was in Merle's Marauders, World War II, take your head off to him. Well, the war rocked on along. They went on down through Burma and down out through those islands there in Indonesia. Well, most all them old head generals, they were relieved and sent home before the war was over. I think General Chennault got his dream, commanding an Air Force over in China, maybe, before he was recalled. General Stilwell, they relieved him, sent him home. General Marshall, he couldn't find a job that Stilwell would take. He walked around with his hand in his pocket looking. He wound up over, just looking things over. Wound up over on Okinawa. And they say he was standing there looking out over the water there towards China. He was being considered to take the job that the commanding General Buckner had over there, had been killed by a sniper just a short time before that. And he was down there looking over towards China when they dropped the big bomb. Now, I sort of secretly believe, I ain't gonna tell nobody, but I think a lot of them big shot generals, they didn't much care if the war got over with or not. It's just like old that Civil War general, or General Sherman. You know what he said about it? War is hell. But you notice what he done on his march through Georgia. Now, don't want to leave out the part about seeing Dr. Seagraves, the Burma surgeon, operating there, him and his nurses, on that airfield of Missional, right out there in the open. And a fellow from El Dorado, Paul Gearin, a Baptist missionary, was supposed to have been in there hipping him at that time. Now, down through the years since the war, I've got maybe a half a dozen letters addressed to my post office box here, to Paul Gearin from the country of India. I always just put them back in the chute there and mark them not from my post office box. Didn't hear any more from them. But the last one, maybe 6 months ago, there was a little note on the back of the letter from the guy that wrote it to the postmaster, saying that he was a good and dear friend of Paul's and would like to contact him. Well, I called that attention to the postmaster here and told him a little story about it. He said he'd see what he could do about it, and I didn't hear any more about it. Now, all this stuff I've been telling you I got out of the history books. And that day I landed over there in Dinjan in Upper Assam, I had never heard anything about this. Didn't know anything about it. I was just a happy-go-lucky 25-year-old buck sergeant, an airplane mechanic. And I was happy because we'd done got over there into some heavy, humid weather, and we'd left all that sand back down there in Africa, and them airplane engines, boy, they was humming like a sewing machine. Well, that was fine and good. We cut our maintenance work by about 2/3, but it wasn't long before them welders and sheet metal men started getting it. We started hitting them little old potholes on them runways, damaging landing gear, wing tips. And every time you come back, your wings is full of bullet holes. You fly over that jungle out there anywhere low, and anybody down there on the ground is going to shoot at you. And they threw it was. Them are ours. If they could see you for a couple of seconds, they're going to take a pot shot at you. And if they happen to hit a gas tank, it didn't do too much damage. The gas would just leak out. And we fly over there, we wasn't going very long anyhow. We're just flying over there maybe between 100 and 150 miles, and shove out that stuff out that door there and come on back. Sometime we wasn't gone over an hour and a half, at the most 2 hours, unless we run into some Jap fighters and had to land somewhere over there. Now, we first got over there, we stayed around a field of Chabu there for a few days, and then went on up to Dinjan, just a few miles from that Burma border. And all we was doing there was flying over that jungle and kicking that stuff out. Had them quartermaster guys in there do that. And hauling that stuff back down there in that Impal Valley down there. And that didn't take very long either. And way we worked it, as well as I remember now, our assistant crew chief working for Tech Sergeant Beeson, and we would sort of take turns about flying about every other trip. And at some of the times I'd fly in the morning, and he would fly in the evening, and that suited me just fine, because I could take off and visit them little old villages around there with right at the edge of that jungle. Wasn't actually in the jungle there. They had a lot of tea plantations around there. Them are rich English people. And they had a Red Cross club there on the field, and we were quartered down into some British tents, and they had a good TX there. They was giving us battle rations. Didn't nothing cost us anything. You'd go with that TX once a day, and they'd give you, I believe it was 2 packs of cigarettes, and a little can of peanuts, bar candy, a package of chewing gum, and 2 little bottles of beer. And what toilet articles you need. And then for every mission that we flew over there, these English, we was under their command. I think they had a ration of 2 ounces of whiskey for every mission. And we let that build up, you know, till we got a half pint, maybe a pint. Now, when we first got over there was a little bit of rain every day. But overall, there was more sunshine. And I went around them little old villages down there. Had good roads. And boy, they were something else. Them Chinese were in there. Had all kind of little old businesses. They'd make you boots, shoes, uniforms, anything you wanted. You'd tell them what you wanted one day and get it the next. Everybody, they had them little grass huts. All them women had a Singer sewing machine sitting out there under the porch. They had them little old bazaars around where they sold souvenirs and things like that. Boy, I brought back a lot of stuff, just little things. You know, the war was over there in Burma in the jungle, and it was peaceful around there. And right there on that base is where those pilots loaded up and took off and flew over that hump over into China. And it's right at the end of that railroad. So they had plenty of supplies around there. And we had good rations and good entertainment around there. There's a lot of mosquitoes and snakes and everything, but they didn't seem to bother you too much. One thing you sort of had to learn, you know, when you woke up in the morning, you just didn't reach down and put your shoes or boots on, because you know there might be a little old snake in there or a rat or something. We'd go to sleep at night. We learned all this, you know. We'd take a barrack bag, had drawstrings at the top, you know, and we'd put all our clothes and everything in there and tie it up real good and hang it up on a nail. And then we'd get in them cots under them mosquito nets and sweat out the night. Now, like I say, the mosquitoes bad, and your ticket to everything over there was a little old bottle of insect repellent. It had to be about half full. That's the only way you could get in any place. Mess hall, picture show, Red Cross Club. The only place, well, you had to get in any place. Now, they had some Chinese restaurants scattered around there. Little old grass huts with tin tops on them. And boy, they serve some good food. I always eat supper in one of them rather than the mess hall. And they had some little old chickens over there. I guess about the size of a pigeon. You was real hungry, you could eat 2 of them. And they'd fix them up in what they call chicken chow mein. They'd take one of the little chickens and gut it, and take some of that brown rice, and make a dressing out of it, and them bamboo shoots, and boiled eggs and whatnot, and what they call a curry. And boy, they'd cut up that other chicken, spread it all over that, and I'm telling you, that was good eating. I dream about it sometimes. Now, it seemed like if he's going to fly in the morning, say you'd take off just good daylight, you know, and when the sun come up, well, there wasn't much twilight and dusk over there, you know. It was just either night or day, all of a sudden. And when that sun come up, all that steam come up out of the jungle, and it started just like flying through a fog. By the time you got over to Burma, well, that steam had come on up and formed clouds. They were just layers of clouds. And they were in layers, but they were broke up. They were broken up. You could be flying through them layers of clouds. They use them for corridors. They go in this way, take one layer, and coming back, take the other layer, and so forth and so on. Now, they were so scattered that when you look right straight down, they wasn't much. You could see the ground and just a misty cloud there. But if you looked all around you, right over the top of them, you know, under them, it looked like that you was flying right between two layers of blankets. And you'd get over there in the jungle, say you was going over there with maybe 4 or 5 airplanes. And when you got to where that you was going to make you drop and kick that stuff out on the ground, those men down there on the ground would have some kind of a signal, drop zone, put out there in some kind of white material in letters and whatnot, sort of a code. You could see down there where you're supposed to drop that stuff. And you get up on one of them drop zones, so you had 5 or 6 airplanes, and you start making a big circle. And one of them would go down there and kick its stuff out and come back up. Well, didn't nobody else go down till he come back up. And if he had to make another run, he'd get back in the circle. Otherwise, he'd get out there in the clear a ways and start making another circle, waiting. And you fly along, you could see them airplanes flying along over there in a circle. You could see one of them dip down. And then you could see one of them come back up. And it looked like that they were just flying over that layer of clouds and going down in it and coming back up, which they were. But up there where they were, that they could see down. Well, then you would kick out all that stuff. And most of it was brown rice in bags, the 3 bags there wrapped around each other. Just kick it out on the ground. 1 or 2 of them bags might break, but the last one generally hold that rice. And some more of the perishable stuff I might have in wicker baskets. And it's real perishable. We'd get up a little higher and drop it out in a chute. And then after you got through there, well, you'd start back. Now, them Jap Zeros airplanes over, I don't think they were Zeros, but there's something similar. They was all over that country there. And our fighter planes was too. In fact, we was over there in landing at the airfield of Mixno. Them P-40s and later on P-51s, they were flying over there and strafing that jungle out there just all the time we was there. And they'd get through. About time we got ready to leave, they'd hike it on back over to India, you know. And of course, they never did escort us anything over there or not. If we got a warning on the radio that there's some Japs around, we'd either get up there in one of them clouds. You get way on up high, there's 2 or 3 or 4 layers in the clouds. And then way up there, high in the sky, they were sort of big balls of clouds. It's thick, you know. I guess one of them maybe Might have been about the size of the elevator, bigger. And if we got in a tight, we'd get up in there and go through them clouds. You never would turn a circle in them. You might hit somebody. And some of the time we'd land on them little old airfields that's made down there in the jungle until you get an all clear. I remember one time I landed down there in the jungle and little old airfield, and was flying along. I believe it had 3 airplanes, and one of them had some engine trouble, and we had to land there. And about time we landed, we used anti-aircraft guns around that low field, started popping off, boy, right straight up. Well, I run out there in that in them woods and sat down. And when the all clear sounded and guns stopped shooting, well, I started back, and boy, I was lost. I didn't know where I was. Well, I sat down there, and I kept listening to the noises over there, and guys hollering, shouting, and walked toward them. I was lucky. I come on out. It must have took me 10, 15 minutes to walk out of there, and it didn't take me but a couple to run in there and sit down. That was jungle for it. Now, we pulled some gliders over there in the jungle. They had some road building material in them. Little old graders and tractors and whatnot, and some runway steel. What they do, they'd pull them gliders over there, and they'd cut them loose, and they'd land them down there on one of them little old sandbars on one of them rivers. Now, maybe in the river, it wasn't very deep. And they'd pull some more gliders in there with engineers in them, American combat engineers. And they'd pull them gliders out of the water there with them tractors, get a hold of one of them, and they'd start clearing that land around there, build an airfield. They'd get some of that gravel out of that river there, and before you know it, they had an airfield built there. We landed on lots of them. I remember there was a glider pilot over there on that airfield, was Jackie Coogan. He was that child movie star. And after the war, he continued in his acting career. But that time, he was a glider pilot, and he had been married at one time to Betty Grable, and she was the #1 pinup girl at that time. And boy, you talk about guys having some fun out of old Coogan. Boy, they had it. Anything, you know, to pass the time. Now, India was strange country. Some of the things you just had to get used to, like going around them towns and them snake charmers. Had them cobras in them baskets, you know, playing the flute. Of course, they knew what they was doing. I found out later that them most of them cobras had been defanged. And another thing, they couldn't strike out like a rattlesnake. They just rear up and throw their head forward down on the ground, and whatever arch that made, well, that's all they could do. And they couldn't just bite you. They'd chew on you. For instance, if you just put the palm of your hand up there you know, a guy knew what he was doing. Well, that cobra struck at it. He couldn't bite. He couldn't bite a flat a place like that. But if you stuck your finger out there, well, he'd grab a hold of that and start chewing on it. They knew what they were doing. Well, we took a run down to Calcutta, and well, that's a long story. Didn't much happen down there. Just seeing all the beggars and the dead people on the street every morning, you know, those street people. And, but I found out that, you know, they had the caste system over there. Everybody was born to a trade at that time. And ordinarily, you'd think a beggar was right down on the bottom of the totem pole. But actually, he was 4 or 5 rungs up. You had to be in a certain class to be a beggar. Couldn't everybody beg. And they were pretty well off, come to think about it. Well, we wasn't over there for 2 months. Seemed like 2 years looking back on it. But the rain started getting heavier, and we was landing, taking off in them little airfields full of water. And that wasn't much good. So about the 1st of June, we started packing up to come back. And then we got word that they'd started that second front over there in France out of England, June 6th. So they put us back to work for a few days. It was going to sort of make a little push, I guess, everywhere around the world. And we stayed a few more days, and then we packed up and stopped off there in Agra and got to see the Taj Mahal. Boy, that was a beautiful place. Of course, we didn't get to go in it, but we saw the grounds, and we circled around and looked at it. That was a pretty good deal. Actor Melvin Douglas was over there, one of my favorite actors. I didn't run into him. About a year or so ago, I noticed a book that was for sale in a magazine. The name of it was Under the Burmese Pagoda. And it was, the author was Gus H. Crumpler. And he was the advertising manager of the Times Publishing Company in Harrison, Arkansas. So I ordered the book. He sent it to me. It was about the jungle war over there. Airplane crashed on its way to China, and a Jap Zero shot them down, and they had to walk out of the jungle. And boy, it was a thrilling story. But Mr. Crumpler told me, I wrote to the book and told him that I'd been in Burma too, you know, and a few things about it. He sent the book and sent me a little note and said that his older brother was an attorney, Claude B. Crumpler. And of course he passed on. But he was with the Army Post Office Service. And he served there in India. And from there he went on to Missional in Burma. Said he stayed there for 8 months. And boy, he enjoyed it very much because the war done passed on. And he done a lot of hunting over in the jungle. And he was raised up there in that hilly country in North Arkansas, you know. He was woods-wise. But for mission, I went over into China for a while. And it was a pretty interesting little deal right there. Now, I found out after the war that our trip over into Indian Burma had been all planned out way ahead of time. At just the right time, we was going to be needed over there to supply Stillwell, Wingate, and Merrill on their streak down through that jungle, and we was going to supply them while they took that airport in town of Michino, and that's all they sent us over there for. And when that was over, they sent us back to Sicily. Now I read that this Supreme Commander over there, Lord Mountbatten, asked Mr. Churchill if he could keep our airplanes over there. And Churchill told him that he could. But you see that we came right on back after they took that airport of Michino over there. They hadn't even took that town yet. I don't guess it was maybe 4 or 5 miles away. Well, we came on back. Sat down in Palestine, got to see the Holy Land. Went on back to Sicily. A few weeks later, we moved over to Rome, Italy. And boy, oh boy, what a time. We made that invasion of southern France. I done got to be a crew chief then. And we flew over there one night, started out at night, got there about daylight, dropped paratroopers. We flew back to Italy, hooked onto a glider, pulled it back over there along that French Riviera there and let go of it. Flew back to Italy, got a load of supplies, and mine happened to be newspapers. Flew back over there, flew up and down that coast just kicking them out. And you talk about a long day. And now that was a pretty long day, boy, if you sat down and figured out. It was about 600 miles over there each way, flying about 150 miles an hour. And then you allow for some terminal time. That was a long day, but you know, there wasn't no 16-hour law in the Army. You had to get your rest when you could. And I'm telling you, boy, on one of them 6-hour flights, you can lay down in baggage compartment in one of them airplanes, and boy, you can snooze just like a baby. Well, our air echelon moved over to southern France, and boy, that's another long, wild story. We went on back to Rome, Italy. We made a sashay over to Athens, Greece. Boy, that's a good X-rated story right there. Went over there on that eastern coast of Italy then. Got in that air rescue service. Flew over into Yugoslavia and picked up them guys that bailed out. P-38 escorts. Flew into Belgrade. Come on back. And was over there during the Battle of the Bulls. Got back to Rome about Christmas time. Found out that my orders to go home been laying on the desk there for about a week. I'd done made crew chief, tech sergeant, got in 2,300 operational hours in the air, 105 combat missions, 375 combat hours. They sent me down to Naples, got on the same boat that I went over on, USS West Point. Before the war, the USS America. Went down there, Gibraltar, left there in the middle of a big convoy. Woke up the next morning, boy, we was out there right by ourselves. Making 40 miles an hour, heading right straight to the United States of America. I guess maybe 4.5, 5 days, we hit Boston Harbor, out to Camp Miles Standish, down to Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. From there to Miami Beach, Florida, reassignment. 30 days laying right at home. On out to San Marcos, Texas. And got out there. Our outfit hadn't been formed yet, just on paper. Got another 30-day furlough. Got back. They had some C-47 airplanes training navigators. I was #1 man on the roster. Could have any job I wanted except the line chief job, and the assistant line chief had been filled. Well, I had quite a few jobs around there. Aerial engineer and hangar chief. I wound up as a flight chief. And the point system come along. Well, I think I had 136 points, and you'd get out if you had 70. And a few more things. Well, I cleared the field there, went over to Jefferson Barracks, and got discharged July the 4th, 1945. I was in 10 battles. Got 10 battle stars. I got 9 in the ETO theater. I got 1 for French Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Sicily, Rome, Arno, Air Combat Balkans, Apennines, Southern France, NGO. I got 1 battle star for the CBI. And the campaign ribbons, I got ETO, Asiatic Pacific, American Campaign, American Defense, and a Good Conduct Medal. Had a hard time getting that Good Conduct Medal. It seemed like they just forget about you about that until you screw up. Then they'll give you one. Now I also got a Presidential Unit Citation and an Air Medal for my work over there in India and Burma. Now all of our pilots, navigators, and crew chiefs have got a Distinguished Flying Cross. I just assistant crew chief at the time. And I also got an Air Medal for the invasion of southern France. Came to admit to myself the little that I knew about them airplanes while I was flying and working on them. But according to the Army, I knew that all that I was supposed to know, and I'd done a good job, better than most. But all of our supervisors were experienced men. They knew just exactly what they was doing, and just exactly what to tell me to do. Now you might say, just how in the hell did a soda jerker like you get to be an aerial engineer in the Army Air Corps? Well, I tell you, it was like this. We were specialists. And, too, there was a lot of soda jerkers in World War II. And couldn't just anybody make the grade behind a soda fountain. Ask old Mac Hall. We were highly specialized men. It wasn't everybody qualified for the job. Just for instance, I found out going to airplane mechanic school in a course of engines and troubleshooting. I found out that I had a knack, just a unique thing that when an engine started giving you trouble, I could almost right there on the ground or in the air, I could tell you whether it was carburation or ignition trouble. And on the ground, it didn't take me for just a few seconds to tell if it was a local or a general problem. Now that was just a gift that I found out I had, and it saved a lot of time and trouble. Now most all the guys could do that, but they didn't have some of the other qualifications that I had. Like for a year and a half, I was a assistant crew chief, and I worked for just one man, the crew chief. I took orders from him, and I was on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, you know, a lot of fellas working that close, anybody couldn't get along with them. But I got along with everybody. I loved to fly. Everybody didn't. I don't think I had sense enough to realize the danger or to be afraid of anything. I wasn't a nitpicker or a piddler. Boy, when things were running good, just be happy and thankful for it. I didn't need much rest. I could run around, drink all night, and work all day. I was sort of a tidy person. I'd keep the airplane clean without being told to. Wasn't a fanatic about it, but a flight chief, assistant line chief, and those pilots, they appreciated that. I respected authority. I had a high opinion of my bosses, and everybody didn't. I didn't gripe, suck ass, tried to bully anybody. Played it right down the middle, naturally. Just fit it in. I didn't have that hang-up, this is my job and that's yours. I done anything that needed to be done. I didn't think I knew everything. I wasn't one of them guys you couldn't tell nothing. I learned as I went along. Of course, all these qualities showed up while I was working on the line as a mechanic. Because when a crew chief needed an assistant, he could pick his own man out of a bunch of guys there that was qualified, and then it'd be okayed by the assistant line chief. If you didn't show promise, you never would have got picked or had a chance to fly on the airplane. Now these air crews, they call us, we moved them airplanes around on the ground when the pilots wasn't in them, and boy, I got real good at taxiing them airplanes. In fact, that's the reason I got the job. One of them guys, I think he clipped off about his third wingtip and got busted. I had a good memory. Fella tell me to do something, boy, I could remember it word for word, sometime for a month or two. I guess the main thing was that I wanted to be engineer and fly around. But we were just a jack of all trades, a master of none. We had these specialists. They had a rating there. And everything, like the engine, the propellers, the electrician, the hydraulic service, they were all specialists, highly trained and dedicated men. We didn't have to do any of that. In fact, we didn't know how. We just had to be able to tell them what needed to be done. That was our job, and we was good at it. Just for instance, you take a fellow like Bill Gerard, my brother-in-law, was just a born mechanic. Now, he probably never would have been an engineer, wouldn't have wanted to be one. When he's going to that mechanic school, he'd probably
took advantage of staying up there and taking a specialist course. You could in anything, you know, you wanted to be. He probably took a course in engines, another course to follow up on it, and wound up as a engine mechanic. Good ground job. Didn't have to do any work. Oh boy, you had mechanics climbing all over the place to do that work. You just supervised. Work up to rating of tech sergeant. Going from there to be assistant flying chief, maybe a line chief. And all our flight chiefs come out of the combat crews. Generally made a flight chief out of an engineer crew chief. Now our squadron was split in two parts, you might say, right down the line. On one side you had what we call a line down there. It's around the hangars, where anybody that worked around the airplane down there, the air crews, the specialists, mechanics, your welders, painters, sheet metal workers, and guys like that. They all worked down there on the line. And on the other side, you had your squadron personnel, your clerks, cooks, guards, and motor pool, and things like that. And they didn't intermingle, didn't have any reason to, didn't want to. Now, when they was forming my squadron out there in California just before I got out there, they brought all of the combat personnel, the flight chiefs, crew chiefs, line chiefs, and people like that in from other squadrons, well-established squadrons, men of experience knew what they're doing. And I brought in all of the line technicians, specialists, and mechanics like me from those different technical schools around the country. Now, we didn't have any airplanes at that time, but it had a hangar and all equipment that went with it, the personnel. And they were constantly giving us a chance to see if we was better equipped for some other job or wanted some other job. Well, I didn't realize what was going on, but I elected to stay an airplane mechanic. And boy, I'm telling you, I swept that hangar floor day in and day out. Now, the other side of our squadron was made up of some of those native Californians, all draftees, most of them. And a mixture of guys that come in out there trying to dodge the draft, you know, and in those defense plans, but it got caught up in anyhow. And then you had your Mexicans, your Indians, Hispanics, and boy, I'm telling you, it was a general mixture. Now, they started weeding them guys out right quick and replacing them, especially the Indians. Now, in the long run, there wasn't very many Mexicans left. The few that was spotted around here turned out to be good men. And the Hispanics, they sort of blended in the background, just a little bit darker and a little bit quieter, a little bit better looking than the rest of us. And then you had your Indians. They must have been volunteers. Now, none of these fellas worked on line or anywhere around the airplanes. There was only one Indian that went overseas with us, a fellow named Homer Evans. Now, those Indians were something else. And they were nice fellows that started drinking. For instance, they'd come in 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, after been out drinking, and they'd have a couple of them have a big fight out there in the street. Yeah, funny thing about it, they only fought among themselves. you didn't have to worry about them jumping on you. But it'd take a dozen MDs to separate them guys, put them in straight jackets and take them off. Well, they was all weeded out before we got Camp Dix. And like I say, there's only one Indian that I knew that went overseas with us. Now this Indian, Homer Evans, he didn't drink. But when we was running around over there in them foreign countries and them towns of drinking and whatnot, cutting up, Homer was always with us. He liked me. He was always there sort of in the background. And I can't ever recall him ever saying anything. But he made crew chief and tech sergeant. I'm going to get back to India for a little bit. You know those cloud formations I was telling you about over there? Well, before the heavy rain set in, along about the middle of the afternoon, or just a little bit later, all them clouds would break up. They get way up high there. That heavy air puts them on up there, just little balls scattered around. And when we were flying back from Burma, about the time we hit that Indian border, well, that jungle started thinning out in spots. Now, we done a lot of sightseeing around there. You get down pretty low on the ground, and you see them herds of wild animals, elephants, water buffaloes, round in there. And over there in the camp, those natives, they were tall, handsome people, and they kept themselves real clean. It seemed like that there wasn't no place over there off limits to them. After all, it was their country. And they'd go from one village to the next, you know, or one tea plantation to the next, walk right down them company streets of ours. Wasn't a whole lot of them. They didn't congregate or anything like that or cause any trouble. But you just sort of follow one guy going down through there, and he'd come to a place where there was a water spout, a water tank, a hydrant, something. He'd stop taking the bath. And he'd go on down the street till he hit the next water spout, and he'd take him another bath. They didn't pass up any of it. And you liable to see a couple of them walking down there, down the street with a pole on the shoulders, and they liable to have one of them big old piping snakes that they'd killed hanging on there, or a tiger, or most any kind of a dead animal. So it's a strange country. Now them old heads over there told us to don't bother women. Don't even glance at them. Because in the past there's been some GIs that did, and they just turned up missing. Didn't nobody know what happened to them. Now, one of those towns over there, I believe, called it Sucretine, up there on that railroad. We went in and out at some time. And those guys talking about a big ammunition dump that exploded over there a short time before. There's unloading something out of a boxcar, and it blowed up. When I got back, I found out that one of my cousins, a Callison boy, I don't know if it was J.C. or Ernest, but he lost his life in a similar explosion. I think he was in the quartermaster, the fellow that unloaded them boxcars. And it could have happened over there. And those people, they might could get some information about that from Mr. Crumpler over there in Harrison, Arkansas. Now, I often think about the guys I worked with over there. They must have all come back and scattered, made doctors, lawyers, preachers, politicians, used car salesmen, railroad conductors and maybe engineers, maybe a few bank robbers, and no telling what. I noticed in the August 1984 issue of the American Legion magazine, under Air Force reunions, 18th Troop Carrier Squadron, 64th Troop Carrier Group, October, New York City, Al Rubin, R-U-B-I-N, 168-04, 19th Avenue, Whitestone, New York, 11357, area code 212-352-2839. I'm going to look into that.
In the spring of 1945, the island of Okinawa, the last battle in World War II, was pronounced secure by John Joseph W. Stilwell.